All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming to the Community Water Quality Meeting. My name is Lauren Weston. I'm the district manager for the Franklin County Natural Resources Conservation District. I actually can't see you all very well, so if you do want to get my attention, please just flail as best you can. Um, Thanks for coming out on a Wednesday night. I'm really excited to have everybody here and to have this conversation with you all. Please feel free to continue to get food. The brownies are ridiculous. We recommend. The cookies also ridiculous. There are bathrooms outside. Take care of everything you need to take care of in this next little bit, and we'll definitely have some time for conversation at the end. Oh, and I was so close to having this work so smoothly. There we go. As you can see, here's our agenda for the whole night. You've successfully dined and mingled, so give yourselves a round of applause. Yes, kudos to the chef, Dorothy Kinney Landis. Incredible food. And Maria Burnett for the cookies and the brownies. I'm going to talk for probably longer than you want to listen to me, but that's all right. And then we're going to have some presentations from others, which is really great. And then we're going to have a conversation kind of all together. Here's my presentation agenda, and I'm going to try to walk everybody through to make sure we're all on the same page and then talk about some of the highlights that the Franklin County Conservation District has accomplished. So to get started, also, if you can't hear me at any point in time, please, again, just flail. To get started, I'm going to take you on a journey. We're going to go together. And tonight we're going to talk about kind of what are the issues on the table in front of us. And they are both water quality and water quantity. Definitely going to focus mostly on water quality, but we would be remiss if we didn't talk about quantity. So when we talk about water quality, it means a lot of things. It means anything in our water that we don't want there or at levels that are too high. There are many different things in water quality or in our streams and rivers and lakes that should not be there. But as most conversations go in Franklin County and this region, we're mostly going to talk about phosphorus today. We wanted to remind everyone that that's not the only issue we're dealing with here. But phosphorus is our favorite to talk about because it causes cyanobacteria blooms and some problems for our waterways. As you know, when there's too much phosphorus in a water body, it can create blue-green algae blooms. This particular one is from Lake Carmi in September of 2023, which was a particularly terrible month for Lake Carmi, as you can see from the chunks in the water. One of the issues we're dealing with is legacy phosphorus. So this is the phosphorus that's already in the lakes because of historic land use over time. And we'll get into that a little bit more. But basically, what it's showing is that there's phosphorus in the sediment on the bottom of the lakes already. And when the oxygen in that water is used up and there aren't strong winds to kind of turn the water, that's when phosphorus can get released out of the sediment and back into the water column and then be used up by blue-green algae and create these blooms that are problematic. And then if we're again pivoting towards water quantity, you are all well aware that there's been a lot more floods in the last couple of years than there has been, and the predictions are only more and more dire based on climate change. So things are continuing to change, and we're going to have stronger precipitation in shorter periods. It's just what's going to happen. What's important to note is that while there's the issues of inundation, so this is when there's literally too much water on the landscape and it's spilling out of the streams and flooding houses, that's one type of problem, that's inundation. But there's also another type of problem that comes with that, and that's erosion. So when there's too much water and it's moving too fast, That's actually really where we're getting a lot of the damage. Over 75% of monetary flooding damages were due to that erosion rather than just the water coming out of the stream. So it's really, it's two issues in one. And then the flip side of all the flooding is obviously also the drought. So we're having more extreme weather. Flood and drought like to go hand in hand. And so I think we can expect to continue to see these cycles for the foreseeable future. That's kind of what the issues were. And now we're going to do a little bit of where are the issues. Obviously, they're everywhere, but for tonight's purposes, we've got a couple of maps for you to look at. Does that show a little bit? So the green and yellow are kind of the Franklin County and the conservation district boundaries. This nice pink little one, that's the Lake Carmi watershed, one of our favorites. This large kind of yellow outline that goes across New York and Vermont, that's the Lake Champlain Basin watershed. It also goes into Canada, but sometimes we pretend that they're not there. This orange and blue and purple are some of the sub basins we're going to talk about, and I've got another map with those too, so I'll hold those. And then we're showing also the major streams. So this stream right here is the Winooski, this one's the Lamoille, and this one's the Missisquoi. And you're going to hear those names quite a bit tonight. Again, just want to kind of highlight where we are. The Franklin County Conservation District works across 3 of these subbasins, the Missisquoi Bay, the Lamoille River, and Northern Lake Champlain. So tonight I'm going to have a bunch of information, and some of them are for the whole state, some of them are just for the Missisquoi Bay, and some of them are for Franklin County. Some of them are for Lake Champlain. So I'm going to do my best to tell you where I'm talking about, but it's not always a one-to-one as I'm moving through this. So I realize I should also have an eye on the time so I can keep my pace up. Again, so this is the footprint of just the district's landscape. And so some of the partners up here, they're going to work in different sections of this and additional areas across Lake Champlain Basin. But what I really wanted to point out with this is that step 1, there's over 2,000 miles of streams in Franklin County. And then additionally, more than half of the landscape is forested, with the majority of that being deciduous. And then there's, let's call it a third. Let's call it less than a third. Let's call it a quarter in agriculture with crops, hays, and pasture. And then there's quite a bit in water. A tiny sliver of impervious. So that's like parking lots and roofs and buildings and that kind of thing. And then there's some shrubs, grassland, and woodlands as well. Thank you for being with me through that. So how did we get here? Lakes naturally have a life cycle where they fill in. That's how topography works. Things from upper in the watershed end up lower in the watershed. We've done a really good job of speeding this process up and having some strong problems along the way. There's a lot of copied text on this page, but effectively what this slide is showing is that in the 1930s and beyond, the folks who were working with farmers to try to grow more food to feed Americans, especially around those World War II years, were really trying to enhance the ability of our soils to produce food. So we put a lot of phosphorus on, it was recommended, and we limed a lot of fields because Vermont is naturally a forested area. It isn't naturally wanting to grow food, so we had to add stuff to it. And we, as a community, decided that we needed to eat. And so these are the choices that we made and what the recommendations were. So that's kind of how the phosphorus got into the mix, kind of the excess phosphorus. And then there's this additional issue of what is coming out of the river networks that's ending up in the lakes. And one of the things that we also liked to do in the 20th century was to straighten streams and to make them faster. And in many ways, that was to get the flooding off of the farm fields again, so we could grow more food. And a lot of choices were made. We were able to straighten streams, but the unintended consequence of that is that they got a lot faster because they were technically shorter, because they weren't winding anymore. So in many respects, we then tried to dredge the streams, which made them again deeper, which again made all those streams faster because they couldn't spill out and slow down. So they were kind of like in this channel and they just kept getting lower and lower, which leads to more of that erosion we were talking about associated with flooding. This slide has too many words, but the moral of the story here is this is kind of the district's mea culpa, that we also helped fund a lot of drainage systems being put in and farm ponds. And we also supported a lot of phosphorus. So I think, you know, hindsight's 2020, and you can't necessarily predict what the outcome of some of your suggested practices will be. All of this to say, there have been the assessments of over 5,000 river miles in Vermont, and 75% of those assessments found that the streams in Vermont were undergoing some sort of change where they were either getting deeper, they were widening, and then they were causing additional falling in of sediment into the stream to kind of recreate a floodplain that they could access, which is a natural process that we've certainly exacerbated. And then, because it's always fun to talk about floods, just wanted to show a couple of the expensive ones and reiterate that this flooding could become the new normal as climate change keeps warming the atmosphere. Vermont has mountains, and that can be a problem. And especially if we're getting rain on top of rain on top of rain, the soils are just too wet to absorb more rain. We have heavily manipulated rivers and also a crumbling dam system. So what is the current status? I'm gonna talk a little bit about all of Lake Champlain, and then I'm gonna also highlight just the Missisquoi Bay. This is the state of the lake report from the Lake Champlain Basin Program. Highly recommend checking it out if you haven't. I'm gonna talk through what's kind of up north. And so what's being shown here is the annual average phosphorus concentrations in these parts of the lake. And the blue and the numbers next to it are the goals for phosphorus concentration that we want to see, and then the red above it is showing over time kind of where we've been. So we're not necessarily always meeting our goals everywhere. This lovely slide is from the Agency of Ag, and so this is describing the progress towards the total maximum daily load of phosphorus. And so load is the volume of phosphorus that's getting to the lake every day. Yes, total maximum daily load every day. And at this point in time, the state of Vermont has reached about 35% of its Lake Champlain phosphorus load reduction so far. And I just want to note that the agricultural sector has contributed 83% of that work for fiscal year 24. Thank you, Nina Gage, for this slide. I don't know where you are. Thank you for this slide. So what this particular slide is showing, and we've highlighted in red those same 4 sections of the lake that were on the previous slide. What this is showing on the target required is how many megatons. I know Dorothy corrected me on this earlier. Metric tons. Anybody else want to? Yep, Nina's nodding. Thank you. Sorry, we discussed this earlier. I had it down. Metric tons of phosphorus needs to be reduced in a particular lake segment, and then on the right is how close we are to getting to that achievement. And so Isle Lamont, we only need half of a metric ton reduced, and we're 16% of the way there. In Missisquoi Bay, we need 87.7 metric tons reduced, but we're 26% of the way. So that's a lot. The Northeast Arm, 2.2 metric tons, and we've done it. Great job. Similar for St. Albans Bay. We're looking just for those 3.4 metric tons, and we have successfully achieved that. A lot of these goals are annual, related to annual practices. So it's not like we did it and we're done. It's okay, we know we can do this and we got to keep doing it every year. For Missisquoi Bay in particular, these slides are from Matt Vaughn at the Lake Champlain Basin Program, and his data reflects the in-lake monitoring data. So this is all modeled tributaries, so not necessarily exact data collected from the streams, but pretty well modeled, and then actual data collected in the lake. So a combination of those two. And what his presentation often says is that, so for the Missisquoi Bay, that involves the Missisquoi River goes into Missisquoi Bay, as well as the Pike River, as you all well know. And so it's just kind of showing that for the Missisquoi River, the goal is to have 81 metric tons of phosphorus per year. We are well above that, but in recent years, it has been trending downward. So that is exciting. A little bit less of the negative trend in recent years on the Pike River, but still headed in the right direction. Similarly, so this is the combination of the Missisquoi River and the Pike River, showing that we are not necessarily on track all the time, but we were, I think, in like 2021, we hit our goal. So still have a long way to go. And then in terms of the concentration of that phosphorus in the streams, so this is not necessarily just the volume, but this is like how much sediment per unit of water. So if you have a high flooding year, it might be more diluted because there's more water. We are definitely seeing some strong negative trends in recent years towards getting that concentration down towards the 25 micrograms of phosphorus per liter in the bay. And again, this all kind of cycles back to, great, we can control what's coming out of the watershed by controlling what's coming out of the rivers and what's going into the rivers. But then there's also this inherent issue of there's already a lot of phosphorus in the lake, and that's something we can't just ignore. His takeaways are that the tributary phosphorus loading remains higher than the target, but again, encouraging signs. Legacy phosphorus contributes significant amount of phosphorus to the bay. The in-bay phosphorus concentrations are higher than the target, but again, showing positive signs, encouraging signs. I want to use positive, negative here. And so while the watershed load reductions are critical and we need to all keep doing our work on the landscape, we also need to like firmly acknowledge that what's going on in the bay with the legacy phosphorus is a huge issue. This is just reiterating that we're not at our target for what's happening in the bay in terms of the concentration of phosphorus there. Yes, yes. So the Missisquoi Bay also receives inputs from Canada. None of my data reflects that, except for the actual data in the lake that is reflective of what's actually happening. So what is being done about this? Many of you might know that the state of Vermont kind of breaks up different land use sectors to try to get at this phosphorus issue with sector-specific practices and approaches. And so there's a handful of different sectors we're going to talk about. And there are some example projects on this screen. So agriculture, stormwater, natural resources, transportation-related stormwater, which is its own thing, and wastewater. I'm gonna be very honest. The district works a lot on agriculture and natural resources and less so on the other three. So I'm gonna skim past those pretty quick for you. I think it's important to put all of this work into context. And so here's a lovely timeline that Arena made for me. showing that since the end of the 20th century, rules, so regulatory and non-regulatory programs, have been implemented to address this issue across all of the sectors, including some of the national laws, and then some of the attempts to regulate agriculture, and the total maximum daily load for phosphorus in Lake Champlain, and also a partnership program called the Vermont Agricultural Water Quality Partnership that involves many organizations across the state who are trying to meet this goal together. And then continued, Vermont in 2015 passes Act 64, or the Vermont Clean Water Act, which established the Clean Water Fund and the Clean Water Board to really try to ramp up the work being done. A revision of the Lake Champlain total maximum daily load went into effect, and on agricultural lands, the required agricultural practices were implemented. Then came some funds for partners to help with the agricultural clean water initiatives. And then once we kind of got a handle on all the programs that were needed for agriculture, there were also rules going into effect for the municipal roads general permit. So that's that transportation related stormwater. And then in terms of regular stormwater, you might have heard of the 3-acre stormwater rule that also went into effect, as well as funding for the clean water service delivery model, which establishes funds and frameworks for achieving those clean water goals. I'm sure you'll hear more about that tonight. And then we also have additional stormwater and wastewater rules related to the municipal separate storm sewer system general permits, and very recently, the Flood Safety Act, which was triggered by the flooding. Okay. So what's been done in terms of water quality across all those sectors? There are some pretty comprehensive policies across Vermont that are trying to get at water quality through a point source. So that's literally if you can point to something, just one thing that's causing bad water quality, that's a point source. If you can't point to just one place, that's non-point source. And we're trying to get at both of those issues with rules, so regulatory, and with voluntary measures, non-regulatory. One way we're doing that in a structured manner is through tactical basin planning. And so these are kind of those same watersheds we walked through, showing that we're trying to get at this in a strategic manner. So tactical, think strategic. Through all of this effort and frameworks, a lot of money, both state originated funds, federal funds, everything in between, are being directed by the state towards all of these different sectors to try to improve water quality. The blue is wastewater, the yellow is agriculture. You can see kind of the trend over time. More money is coming in to try to address these goals. Again, across the whole state, we're hitting all 5 sectors, and getting a lot of work done, and a lot of things are ramping up in the last couple of years. So we're on a good trajectory. I love this graph. What this is showing is that the phosphorus reductions by land use sector, again, are growing over each year, and that the majority, as I mentioned before, is coming from agricultural lands. So ag is definitely stepping up and doing their part. And I think the rest of us are kind of catching up. So agriculture specifically. This is the report out of 2024. And so, again, those 3 watersheds, the Missisquoi Bay, the Moyle River, and Northern Lake Champlain, there's been a lot of investment, particularly in the Missisquoi Bay, because we have a really high target. We had that 87.7 metric tons. We need a lot of resources to hit that. And that has resulted in 42,000 acres of agricultural conservation practices implemented, with a resulting reduction of 19,000 kilograms. And this is just for the state programs only. So this does not include any of the NRCS or federal monies or funds. We'll go with MUNs today. And so thinking again, just on the state level, this is huge progress. Breaking that down, what does that really look like on the landscape? Different practices that farmers are implementing are being modeled to show how much phosphorus are being reduced in different areas. And again, over time, it's increasing, which is great. A lot of cover crop and manure injection and conservation tillage, among other practices. This is showing the phosphorus reduction by practice, and this is the acreage by practice. So it doesn't necessarily line up one-to-one about what practice is being implemented. The most acres is giving you the most phosphorus reduction, but just wanted to show that one. This slide does include both state and federal programs for Missisquoi Bay. And it's telling a pretty similar story, that we are continuing to invest and getting the phosphorus reduction outputs that we want based on these practices that the farmers are adopting. A little bit of small font, I apologize for that. But those practices were all what's happening out in the field. And these are some of the practices that the state's funded since 2022 on the farmstead or around the barns. So there's 25 projects that have gone into place on heavy use area protections in just Franklin County in the past, again, 2 to 3 years. Projects on the ground are great, and technical assistance from folks who are qualified to help farmers make decisions is also great. And what this slide is showing that for state programs, the Agency of Ag in Franklin County is out on the ground a lot, and the districts are out on the ground a lot too, as well as UVM Extension and our other great partners in the Farmers Watershed Alliance, Friends of North Lake Champlain, and American Farmland Trust, among others. This is kind of just what gets reported through a state database, so not necessarily everything is captured in this. And we are out on farms trying to work with farmers and help them wherever we can. In terms of natural resources, which is not necessarily a great break between agriculture and natural resources, but we have to categorize somehow. I think they really do work together, and most farmers are managing a lot of non-ag land. Some of the great project outputs in the Lake Champlain Basin. So again, the larger basin, not just Franklin County or Missisquoi Bay. We're making some good progress towards restoring floodplains and planting trees along streams. The district's been really good at that. I have some fun numbers for you. And we're also doing kind of this technical assistance to regular people as well, not just farmers, to make sure that everybody's bought in and doing great work. And there's a lot of other partners, including folks in this room, who are doing this work. And as I mentioned before, I'm kind of grouping the rest of them together. I don't know why jumping came in. So stormwater, transportation related stormwater and wastewater. In terms of stormwater, I just want to kind of show here that, again, progress is being made there. More needs to be done, but we're on a good trajectory towards getting things like impervious, excuse me, impervious surfaces. So parking lots not going directly into drains that go straight to the lake, putting in gravel wetlands, and putting in swales, and that type of practice is what we're talking about when we're talking about stormwater. When we're talking about roads, a lot of it is managing stormwater with ditches and turnouts. So we're trying to disconnect the roads that are moving water really quickly alongside them from going straight into streams so that there's time for those to sink in. There is, again, that municipal roads general permit, and that's basically helping towns assess and improve their road side ditches. In terms of stormwater, again, kind of in general, the regulations, including that general permit, will get us to about 18% of the stormwater target is the idea, but more voluntary practices are needed to get that implemented across the landscape. And then wastewater, there's been a lot of funding put towards improving the wastewater treatment systems, refurbishing those, and getting a lot done. I can't speak intelligently towards the wastewater work, but I imagine someone in the room might be able to. And then again, circling back to water quantity, there are additionally rules about water quantity. So there's reporting that is based on how much you're withdrawing out of surface waters. You have to report that now. And then I'm sure many folks in the room know there's also a lot of rules around wetlands. There's also the Flood Safety Act, and I'll just plug that there's another webinar if you're having so much fun tonight on March 19th at 5:30 that I actually think is going to be really great, and with a similar group of partners in the room to explore really like flooding in particular, less maybe than water quality. There's also efforts going on across all of the basins trying to plan for this resilience around flooding. There's a Lamoille River flood model and some prioritized projects that just came out that we're all going to start kind of working towards. As you know, the Lamoille got walloped pretty good, and trying to find some alternatives there. And then if this wants to play, one thing that the district has been working on is in Montgomery, we worked with some consultants to try to estimate where the flood impacts would be the worst on different scales of flooding and to try to identify projects to reduce that risk. And so we are moving forward with several projects in Montgomery to help them actually create more flood storage to keep their community safer. Almost there, I promise. In particular, I always want to brag a little bit about what the Franklin County Natural Resources Conservation District is doing and this incredible team that works for the district, and also the incredible team of supervisors that has really supported this vision of trying to get a lot done. The history of the district, those of you may not know, we actually were established in April of 1946. So this is our 80th year. We're having a birthday party on June 13th, if anybody wants to come. And we're one of 14 districts in Vermont. And our current mission is to empower and partner with land stewards and communities on the ground by supporting connections that benefit natural resources, water quality, soil health, and the working landscape in Franklin County and across Northwest Vermont. Our vision was of farmers trying to help other farmers do the right thing, and that's still what we're trying to do today. So in terms of agriculture, what we've accomplished, I had to break it up in a couple different years, but since 2021, staff have gone out on 516 on-site farm visits. We've updated 60 nutrient management plans for farms and made 16 new plans in the past 5 years. We've also taken over 1,100 soil samples. So we have walked the fields. We know what's going on out there. We've additionally, since fiscal year 22, assisted, I got rid of the T somehow, assisted 70 to 110 farms per year, including participation in a program called Pay for Performance from the state, where we're working with over 30 farms, and which is effectively about 15% of all available farmland in Franklin and Grand Isle counties are enrolled in this program to pay farmers for the good work they're doing to reduce phosphorus on the landscape. And then in fiscal year 25, again, kind of this partnership piece, we've made over 119 referrals to other programs to help farms really get connected to what they need. And we've also been able to direct some of the federal NRCS money towards projects that are prioritized in just Franklin County through the locally led process. And then I just wanted to show this incredible map that Carrie has been working on. Carrie, give yourself a pat on the back. And so this is showing a lot. I think I need to swap my share screen. Yeah. Oh, it works. Okay, great. That never works. What this is showing again is the outline of Franklin County is the yellow, the blue is obviously the streams. Those are actually a little challenging to see what else is going on, so I might turn those off. And then each dot is a project that's either been identified as something that we want to work on or something that we've successfully accomplished. And each dot color means something different. You might see that we did work a little bit outside of Franklin County a couple of times. These are actually all culverts, and that was a partnership we had with the Orleans County Conservation District to identify some culverts out there that could use some upsizing for brook trout. And then we found a bunch of the green is tree plantings, either again identified that we want to plant or that we have already. Pink is around Lake Carmi, and we did some pretty in-depth project development there, and we're moving forward with, I believe, at least 10 projects I will note none of these dots represent the farms that we're working with. So if we were to add those in, again, that'd be about 110 each year on top of this map. So this is actually just the natural resources projects, I should be clear. And then we've done some kind of watershed, sub-watershed wide work to identify projects as well. And we're doing some great project development work in Montgomery, is what that blue shows. Based on that map, the on-the-ground natural resources projects that the district has previously implemented, so that's truly done and in the ground. We spent a little over $1 million on those projects. The majority of those have been riparian tree planting buffer projects that have gotten us almost 100 kilograms per year of phosphorus reduced, which is no small feat. And then we've also done 8 non-riparian tree planting projects. So any other type of project that wasn't a tree planting. Hasn't gotten us a ton yet, but we haven't necessarily been focused on phosphorus during those past years. And the costs of previous project development to get us to where we are today is a little over $200 or a little under $250,000. But as should be the theme of the night, things are looking good. We're headed in the right direction. We've got almost $4 million put towards projects that are in development now, but maybe haven't been fully finished or are about to go in the ground or still need a bit of work done on them. And with all of those projects, we're looking at about 173 kilograms of phosphorus per year, which is really great. We've got 14 floodplain and stream restoration projects coming up that are like we're actively working on every day. More tree plantings, always more tree plantings. Putting wood back into streams to kind of restore those systems, taking out dams. We're getting into forestry and wetlands and continuing to work on the lake shoreland. And one of my favorite fun facts, since 2021, almost 30,000 stems have been planted across nearly 60 acres by our own staff. Just because it's a really fun video. Thank you, Viva and Carrie, for this video. This was set up downstream of the dam that we took out this year in Berkshire that was owned by the village of Enosburg Falls. And so we set up the camera before the dam came out, and then they started moving and taking the dam out. It's just, I think it's a really good example of the work that we're trying to do and the scale we're trying to do it at. This was definitely one of our biggest projects ever, though, by a lot. It snowed and it kept snowing and it still hasn't stopped snowing. And then again, just in terms of what we're trying to do in the community, you probably know about us from our annual tree sale. We've been able to trace it back to 1984, distributing over 60,000 stems in the past 10 or 5 years to 300 to 450 customers. We're getting volunteers out in the landscape with us, including kids, working a lot with schools. We had over 1,000 people participate in 50 workshops in fiscal year 25, and we worked with 8 different towns. And we're continuing to work on assessments of all kinds, meetings like this, volunteer opportunities, which is great. So some key takeaways: the phosphorus problem has no easy or quick fix. The ag community has made great improvements since 2015. The farmers are doing their part and they are being supported. And there's still a lot more to meet the phosphorus goals. In 2023, the state was a little halfway through the time allotted in the TMDL to reach the goal, but we were not halfway to the goal in terms of volume. So we still have more work to do and to really exponentially increase that. And we need to hit it from all angles: regulatory, non-regulatory, point source, non-point source, local, federal, state, private, community. We've got to just keep working, and we've all got a role to play. And I'm sure many of the partners will also share how you can get involved tonight, but hang out with us. We're doing cool stuff. Do good things on the land and tell your friends about it, and just stay informed. I think that's really what we want everybody to get out of this tonight. Thank you very much. I promise I'll stop talking now. We don't have a workshop survey. I should have taken that line off. That's my fault. We do have a locally led survey if you haven't yet filled it out and you want to tell us what your priorities are. With that, I'm going to hand it to Sarah. Actually, sorry. Any questions? Linda.
For over again, that if one, this is, it pulls ourselves off the ground, stands up, then let's see, so in the stage these days, and looks at the long game. I mean, your statistics all over the place, if you focus on the long game, are remarkable.
Yes. All over.
That said, there seems to be kind of a flattening in a lot of them. Just like there was a real big peak. Is it just because, you know, it's the low hanging fruit that you pick off from the beginning when people got interested in this, and now we're stuck with the harder things? Like, is that why that not?
Why it's peaking? I think the results are peaking along with the funding, and I think there's some flattening. There's some correlation there.
Okay.
But I also do think there's a piece of it that, you know, again, the low hanging fruit has been kind of achieved, still needs to be incentivized annually for the most part. And some of it was just already being done, maybe even before 2016, but we didn't have it reported. And so as we got better at reporting it too, it really ramped up. I think we all feel like we're in a good position with the reporting systems we have and feel like we're capturing pretty adequately what's going on in the landscape now. So that might be part of it too, just like us getting the data to put into the systems. So a multi-factored diagonal there for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Wonderful. Now I'll invite Sarah up to the stage. You should just be able to forward click through. Yeah, no, it's pretty terrible.
Lauren wasn't kidding about the light, so hi everybody. My name is Sarah Lunn. I am a project manager for the Missisquoi River Basin Association. I've been working there for about 5 years. Grew up in Georgia, Vermont, so I'm a local. St. Albans is a great place. I just want to introduce the MRBA real quick. We're a nonprofit that was formed in 1996, and we serve the Missisquoi River Basin, which includes the Missisquoi Bay and its tributaries. Our decisions and our projects and the way that we move is made by our board, which is made of local community members who are volunteers. And we host a lot of community and educational events. We do tree plantings. We have a native tree nursery that we run and operate in Jay, Vermont. We do river cleanups with canoe, water sampling, a dam removal, which I'm going to talk about tonight. And we have a bank stabilization coming up. And I just wanted to do some placemaking. The orange, reddish star is where we are kind of, and the yellow star is where the dam that we removed is. So we're on the very, very edge of our watershed. And this is a quick, I'm going to talk to you about the Sleeper Pond Dam, which was on Mud Creek. It's a very small tributary on the Missisquoi. This picture is before the removal in 2021. It was a breached dam that had not been operated since the early 1900s. We had a couple locals that we had talked to. We had an 87-year-old gentleman that had been there his whole life, and he said he doesn't remember it ever operating. So we couldn't really find where it was put in or stuff like that. There was a fire in Newport Center in the 60s. So, but it was at a risk of breaching. And it was originally reached out by landowners contacted us because the upstream pond was kind of filling up with a lot of sediment, and they were having a lot of problems with invasive species and fish problems and stuff like that. So they came to us and asked if they could dredge it. And so we decided to come up with a different plan, which involved removing this potential breach of a dam. So we started with an alternative analysis made in 2018 to discover how much that would cost, which, spoiler alert, it changed a lot over the past couple of years. Design plans were started in 2022, and we sought funds through 3 different sources. So we had to go back for funds a couple times because it ended up being a lot more than we originally planned. And there was a bunch of sediment behind it. So Lauren was talking about how phosphorus is trapped in sediment. So we were really concerned about the massive amount of sediment that had been trapped behind this dam for 100 years. When we removed it, we removed 30.28 annual kilograms of phosphorus per year, which is a lot. It's a big number. So I have some pictures to share with you. Here's pre-removal. This is looking down from the top where that bridge was. There's a little road that goes across from it. And this is post-removal. So this was finally officially removed in the end of October. About 12 feet of water of a difference, pretty big drop. And this is post the sediment removed as well. And this is kind of an upstream picture of it. So the left side, it was actually taken in August 30th, 24. It wasn't that green in October, sorry. But that was what the pond used to look like. You can see it's full of sediment and it's kind of gross looking. There's lots of Phragmites and purple loof stripe upstream. And the right image is what it looks like now. That boulder, I'm so proud of that boulder coming out from all that water. Look at him come out. You can kind of see upstream as well. We put in some beaver dam analogs. That is kind of to help some of the flow upstream and hopefully to encourage some beavers to come in there and clean up a little bit for us. And I want to share the next project steps. It's not done. This is a 10-year project and we're still going. We're planting at least 600 stems this spring. I just was filling out orders this morning for it. There is a bunch of landowners that are very supportive and helpful in this. So we are continuing to work with them. And there is unfortunately quite a few invasive species at this site. So I will be managing those as well. And we'll be watching the stream kind of come back to what it used to be. And that left photo is kind of looking back under where the dam used to be. And the right shot is another sunnier picture of the beautiful stream. And just a few other quick things that we're doing for upcoming water quality projects for this year. We are also planning a logjam bank stabilization on the Trout River in Montgomery off of Longley Bridge Road. This is another project that began in 2018 following some land loss from a local landowner. And we're in the permitting phase. We're hoping to start that really soon this summer and go into 2027 with it, with an estimated 49.2 kilograms per year of phosphorus reduction. We're also we're doing tree plantings. If you wanna volunteer with us, we're up in the headwaters. So if you wanna get up there, we got 4.4 acres coming. And we are in our 3rd year of development for our native plant nursery in Jay. So we are continuing to make strides in that. We're hoping to grow thousands of stems for our local partners, including Franklin County. If you have any questions, you want to contact us, that's our information. And thank you. Questions?
Mechanics of the phosphorus. Take away the
It was all the sediment that was trapped behind it. So we removed all the sediment, but I didn't have pictures of that, but there was, I forget how much, but it was a lot. And it was, I think, 3 days and 3 truckloads.
Yeah.
Casella takes care of it. So we had a contractor, so they had a waste disposal site for them. Yeah. Yeah. Northwoods and Intervale. So they're all locally sourced seeds through the past 3 years and through our collections and stuff like that. So we're part of the Native Seed Partnership Network. All Vermont seed. It is. It's in J. Yay.
I was laughing as Lauren was putting this microphone up high because it's hitting at just about the right level for me. Hi, everybody. Let's see. There we go. I'm going to take my glasses off. You're all going to be blurry and in the dark now, so it'll be lovely. Thanks, everybody, for coming tonight. My name is Bridget Butler. I'm the executive director of Friends of Northern Lake Champlain. I'm here tonight with my two staff, right? So Josh Serpy and Gracie Grimes. Can you guys just wave? And then I'm really excited because we have 3 board members here tonight. We have Kent Henderson, Kent wave, Scott Sainsbury, and Don McFeeters. And I want to thank all the rest of you for coming out tonight. Friends of Northern Lake Champlain has been around for more than 20 years in this region of Vermont. We have our office here in St. Albans, and we work across Northern Lake Champlain and its tributaries. And we partner with communities to support non-regulatory clean water solutions that are really locally grounded and long-lasting. All of the partners that you're going to hear from tonight are folks who have partnered with us in one way or another in our work over the years. And one of the things that our work is rooted in is this simple belief that healthy water really starts with people. So that's what I'm going to kind of focus on tonight in our work. While the challenge is complex, and you've heard a lot of that from Lauren's presentation tonight, our approach is intentionally relationship first. We start by listening to landowners, towns, farmers, and lake users, because solutions work best when they fit both the place and the people of that place. From there, we help communities and community members to connect with the right partners, even when it may not be FNLC. We help them with technical expertise, and we help find funding. And we stay engaged beyond a single project. And I think that's something core that my team and I have learned in the short period of time that we've been working for Friends of Northern Lake Champlain. Our 3 pillars for our work include, and I just lost my spot, our water quality monitoring, community engagement, and clean water projects. So Scott, you'll notice that upper left picture there, that's Molly Varner, who's also here tonight, visiting his shoreline property. The lower left picture is a picture of what I call our little R2D2 robots that are out sampling the Rock River up in Highgate. And then this is just so classic Vermont garage, like the Fairfield Pond Association, all of us hanging out over a meal together like we are tonight, connecting over a common cause, the care of Fairfield Pond. So this is really what our service model looks like. So you're hearing today from all of us about proven practices, best management practices, measuring phosphorus reductions, and all that technical work is really essential. I want to say that FNLC's work, what we're striving for, sits right in the middle. We strive to focus on community readiness. We want to build trust. We want to listen to local knowledge, and we want to help interpret the local context of what's going on. Really being able to understand and communicate what's happening on the land and in the water and why it looks different from place to place. When communities can connect with what they're seeing, whether it's flooding, algae, or shoreline erosion, to the land use of their community or subwatershed, the history, and the possible solutions that all of us partners can bring to the table, then community members and individuals are far more likely to support the work and stay engaged over time. You heard Sarah say that project that she was showing pictures of is a 10-year project, right? It doesn't stop with like year 1 or year 2 or when the bulldozers pull away, right? It continues on. And that's really what we're trying to focus on. That shared understanding is really what allows the technical solutions to be adopted, maintained, expanded, and ultimately to deliver the lasting water quality impact we also desire. Ooh, let's see, I think I bounced. There we go. I don't want to forget this. So to give an example, just one example, because I would love to tell you about all of our projects, but the one project that we're working on right now that kind of encompasses all of these things together is the Carey Bay and Pilots Bay Lake Watershed Action Plan. And what you're seeing here is a preliminary map that we've done from starting this action plan with the North Hero community, showing where there are different projects, culverts, conserved land parcels. We've kind of mapped out the entire watershed and begun to understand what the needs are on the land that are influencing the water. So this holistic approach really shows up well in this work. We started a number of years ago by listening to concerns about shoreline health in the North Hero community. We had members on our board from North Hero, And we started offering programs we call shoreline socials in that community. What that allows us to do is to go in and create a social atmosphere much like this and be able to listen and respond to folks' concerns. We partnered with the town's shoreline subcommittee and the Grand Isle Natural Resources Conservation District in order to bring community members together to talk about the changes they've seen and the challenges that are top of mind for them. From there, we were poised and ready to apply for funding for the Lake Watershed Action Plan through the Department of Environmental Conservation to work with community members, now called our Bay Team, consultants, and partners to produce a plan for watershed health, which will be shared with the community upon its completion in 2027. So FNLC's role and our approach is really not to lead with a solution, it's to help move from concern to action in a way that felt workable and lasting for a community like North Hero. So look at that, and it advanced all by itself, yes. All right, so as we look ahead, FNLC is really focused on continuing to show up in these sub-watersheds, listening, building relationships, and helping communities understand what's happening in their waters and why. When people have that shared understanding, they're far more likely to get behind the work, participate in solutions, and most importantly, stay engaged over time. You heard Lauren say everyone has a role, and we truly believe that. And we're trying to find ways to reach out to individuals and really help them understand what their connection is to the watershed and what they can do. And that's how we're going to help ensure clean water solutions are not just implemented, but supported, sustained, and expanded in partnership with all of you who have shown up tonight, which includes our partners and those of you who are individual community members. So thank you for making the time to be a part of the conversation tonight. If you'd like to learn more about FNLC and engage with any of our staff, Josh, our project manager, Gracie Grimes, our community engagement fellow, and myself, it's like our first initial, our last name, and then like the whole name of our organization. It's going to take you a really long time to type it out, so you might want to cut and paste it somewhere. Thanks, everybody, and thanks to the Conservation District for hosting tonight.
All right, and now introduce Molly Varner for the Grand Isle County Natural Resources Conservation District.
I need to move this back a little. Those are some hard acts to follow. I can't stand the sound of my own voice, so I like feel for all of you. Hi, everyone. I'm Molly Varner. I am the district manager of the Grand Isle County Natural Resources Conservation District. Lauren gave a really good sort of scope of what conservation districts do, so I won't spend a lot of time repeating that. So we basically do a lot of what they do, but within Grand Isle County, which is all neatly based in the Northern Lake Champlain Basin. And I'll just point out that the district is a staff of one, me, and I have five great supervisors, but I think as was demonstrated well in these last presentations, everything we do is, most of what we do is a partnership, and we really couldn't do half of what we do without the folks in this room. So thank you, Lauren and team, for bringing us together tonight, and to each one person in the room that collaborates with me and just helps us make progress in the county. So just wanted to circle back to a couple of the charts that Lauren presented that are specific to Grand Isle County. Looking at that similar state data, over the last 5 or 6 years or so, there's been assistance to over 30 farms. For context, the county only has 130 farms, not very many large farms left. So a lot of those are smaller operations. And the Grand Isle County, it accounts for less than 1% of the total land area in Vermont. So we're very small but mighty. And we have a lot of shoreline, so we make up for lack of land space. We are surrounded by Lake Champlain. And we have a sort of very rich culture and in agriculture. And some of those numbers are demonstrated here. There's been 107 farm visits over the last number of years, about half of that led by district staff, including myself and the team with Franklin County. The practices like cover cropping, rotational grazing, no-till, nutrient management planning has led to over a reduction of 5,000 kilograms in Lake Champlain. There's been an investment of 1.5 million in state funding for water quality initiatives. And through the work of the district, both individually and at the regional level, we've managed to bring in an additional 2.3 million in federal funding through the USDA NRCS. This past year, we had 300,000 of that allocated just to the Grand Isle County to address soil health. And I'm sure most people in this room know the correlation between soil health and water quality. It's like a continuous cycle, sort of one. So everything that we're doing on the land, especially being so close to water, is really having an impact on the surrounding lake. And just a little snapshot of some of the more natural resources focused work that we've been up to. We've co-hosted 35 events with over 1,000 participants. We've had contact with over 60 non-agricultural landowners, so working one-on-one, going out to people's properties, walking through it with them, helping to provide them with the tools to make meaningful changes on their own land. We've identified over 32 projects, have 7 of those currently in design, and we also collect water quality samples. And beyond what's shown here, and Bridget talked a little bit about this, we're partnering on a lake watershed action plan in North Hero. We completed one in South Hero, and those sort of sub-watershed assessments help us to identify, 20 to 30 projects. They're sort of ready to get going, get off the ground, be finished with the design and implemented. So I think looking ahead, there's a lot of progress and a lot of work to be done, which is really exciting. We're sort of going to have this amazing portfolio of landowners and projects that we can sort of bring to reality. And I think an important part of that is that all of these sort of tasks and projects really allow us to connect with landowners, with towns, with local partners, and all these sort of conversations and just our events and whatnot, they really lead to something substantial. And we're, I've definitely, since I've been here for 5 years, I've really seen sort of the progress of that. And so it's been fun. Sorry, what? Give or take. I want to quickly, I feel like I'm already taking a while. I'm going to just highlight really quickly a few fun projects we have going on. This photo with all the exposed roots is a shoreline in South Hero. There are 3 adjoining properties that we are in the final design phase of creating a bioengineered shoreline project. So as you can tell, wave action, ice push has sort of just completely eroded the shoreline. And so the landowners originally came to us and said, hey, we're interested in putting up a seawall. We heard a talk that you did about this practice called bioengineering. Fast forward, a couple years, and now we're going to be bringing this bioengineered shoreline to these 3 properties. So it's just sort of I like that story because it sort of shows the full circle impact of the work that we do. The photo in the top right is the South Hero Town Beach. We're working on a similar project, a bioengineered shoreline there. We're working with Friends of Northern Lake Champlain and South Hero Land Trust on that, which has been super fun and just another example of sort of how important these partnerships are. And the last picture is a very incised stream in South Hero that we are getting bids for construction, and hopefully we'll have it done in the fall. Super incised stream that's just continually eroding, washing away sediment and phosphorus into the lake. So we're going to be regrading the stream, allowing it to reach its floodplain, planting a bunch, and it's going to be beautiful. And it's right next to the Two Heroes Brewery. So in October, when you're looking for a break from work, go see the completed project and grab a beer. Yeah, oh, wait. Oops, sorry. Oh, I'm missing a slide. I had some computer issues today, so this kind of came together last minute. But I quickly also wanted to point out, again, kind of going back to that idea of partnership. One thing that's been really impactful to us as an organization has been this sort of greater Missisquoi Bay partnership that Franklin County NRCD started that brings together a lot of the local regional watershed groups. And we sort of meet once a month and talk about everything. We talk about sort of the growing pains of running small districts, funding, tree plantings, administrative stuff. And it's really been a great source for us to sort of use each other's strengths to make our own organizations better. And I'm excited because we're taking that sort of model and doing something similar in Grand Isle County with Friends in Northern Lake Champlain and South Hero Land Trust, as all very like small, nimble organizations. It's really important that we tap into each other because there's, as was shown, a lot of work to be done. And we can do it better when we work together. That's cheesy, but you get the point. So yeah, thank you. What? And next up, I'm not gonna do it as good as Bridget. Dean Pierce with the Northwest Regional Planning Commission.
Thank you, Molly. I realize how tough it can be to go last. At least I'm not between you and lunch. I'm gonna try to keep things moving. Do people want to stand and take a little stretch break first? No? Everybody good? Okay, no signs from Lauren. It'll come soon enough. I'm gonna try to keep things moving. I tend to be long-winded, so apologies, but those of you who know me know that. When we talk about clean water in Northwestern Vermont, we often talk about farms and septic systems and roads, even climate change. Tonight, I want to dwell on something different. And I didn't know the order that we would be speaking, but I want to dwell on the organizations that help connect those things and address those things. Maybe in some ways it might have helped if I'd gone first because of how I'm approaching this. People might never have heard of those organizations or maybe don't understand what they do, but you folks do because you've been here. And that's really what we're celebrating, right? But they're a bit like glue that help individual towns and communities come together and stick together to protect our shared backyard. So as Molly said, my name is Dean Pierce. I work at the Northwest Regional Planning Commission. One of those organizations, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the things that we do. And it's a little bit different from what some of the other folks who've been presenting so far. But first, a little bit of context. We all know a raindrop falling in, say, Bakersfield doesn't stop to check the map before it heads to the bay. We're here because water is a traveler and we need to be ready for where it travels. Here's the basic problem in the world that I operate, the problem that we live with. Water doesn't follow town lines. Phosphorus, which, as Lauren explained, is a nutrient that's causing a lot of the problems that we're dealing with. It doesn't stop at zoning boundaries when it's carried by water. Many decisions, however, about zoning, roads, stormwater development, those are made by towns. And if our environmental problems are regional and decision-making is occurring a lot at the local level, there's potential gap, right? As we're trying to address those things. I'm going to use half my time just flipping through my papers. So that gap is where regional planning commissions, which is one of those community blue organizations, come in. They cover entire regions, not single towns. They're not state agencies. As someone who started working with regional planning a long time ago, is one of the things I learned. You had to explain you're not the state. They're created by and governed by the towns themselves. In fact, the Regional Planning Commission Board is having its meeting right now, in another room, as they say. The Franklin County Regional Planning Commission was created about 60 years ago. It was a few years after that, the Grand Isle County Planning Commission came in. So why do regional planning commissions exist? There are a lot of answers to that question, but I love that people dove into the old newspaper archives. Yeah, it's great what you can find. It wasn't always obvious, unless you're kind of a political junkie, that in the 60s, Vermont realized that because we didn't have multi-purpose county governments, there are implications to that. So regional planning commissions were created to help communities, individual towns do what they couldn't do alone. That's coordinate land use and infrastructure and environmental planning across whole regions. And the slide that I'm hoping you can see, but it's dark, is from a 1966 article in the St. Albans Messenger, where it's highlighting some work by Enoch Tompkins. I'm sure Don knows that name, maybe a few others. He was a professor at UVM, and he was written up in the paper with this article that's, people in Franklin County standing up and basically saying, we want our rivers clean. Can you imagine? That's pretty powerful stuff. Putting it in a little bit larger context, won't dwell on this, but these ideas didn't really come out of nowhere. It was more than 100 years ago that Vermont passed laws that encouraged towns to plan. In the 1950s, established regional planning commissions. I don't want this to be too technical. This is a chart that is used in some kind of presentations having to do with stormwater. I'm going to put it more simply. Think about land like a sponge. When we pave it, parts of that sponge get impacted or impaired, and the water has nowhere to go. It can't go into the sponge, so it goes into our streams, carrying things with it. And in Vermont, land use, whether we pave or not, and water quality are inseparable. So as development expands across a watershed, we increase hard surfaces, and as like this chart shows, if you reach a certain point, the quality of the water in water courses degrades. On the other hand, intact forests, wetlands, and floodplains, they can slow water down, they absorb it, they filter it. They're like water infrastructure. It's just not infrastructure that we built. And in Vermont, really, you can't talk about land use policy without water policy, and you can't talk about water policy. And regional planning commissions are organizations that do a lot of land use policy. So what do RPCs do for water quality? Clean water work today isn't just about rules. It's about identifying problems, designing solutions, lining up funding. I could have titled this Regional Planning Commission Clean Water Funder, but that doesn't really resonate with people. Some people know what you mean when you say you're a funder. I think of it as translators. Regional planning commissions are translators. They translate science into action. They organize towns and organizations and landowners. They help turn grants into projects, and they help track progress over time. And we've seen a lot of that stuff, and I'm really glad that I don't have to go into some of that background information. I thought it was funny as I was putting together the slides. Whoa, I didn't realize that. Yeah, I saw you scurrying around. So the slide says why this matters now. And the picture is one that you've seen, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. It's the chart that shows how over the last 20 years or so, Missisquoi Bay's water quality has been not achieving standard. So the battery is still low. Oh, it's the battery and the projector. Oh, okay. Well, I can improvise. Oh, yay. So being mindful of time, I feel a little bit like I'm playing in a soccer game and it's extra time. So Vermont is asking regional planning commissions and organizations like it to do more than ever on clean water, housing, transportation, you name it. And as an aside, you know, we have our hands as a regional planning commission in most of the things that were mentioned earlier tonight. But people in the state expect solutions across a basin or region. But with our town-based system of governance, that means there has to be coordination. So like I said, this is a chart that you saw earlier tonight. How many people think that solving that problem is going to be something that one individual community, a town, or the people in the neighborhood are going to be able to solve? And will regulations alone solve the problem? No, a lot of what you're hearing tonight are projects that are volunteer focused. They're not based on regulations. So if you care about clean water in Northwestern Vermont, I think you are already caring about regional planning, the regional planning approach, whether you know it or not. I am going to just bear with me, talk a little bit about clean water service providers. Checking my notes here. So regional planning commissions, they wear a lot of hats. One of the hats that we wear at the Northwest Regional Planning Commission is as this thing called a clean water service provider, which is essentially a funder, which means we dole out money. That sounds kind of crass, but when we dole it out purposefully, and we do it in order to try to meet targets that have been set for us as part of something called the Lake Champlain TMDL. Important point is that, as I think you heard earlier today, the amount of phosphorus that's supposed to be reduced going into Missisquoi Bay for the bay to reach water quality standards is 60% across all the sectors and all the forms. That's a big reduction. So as a clean water service provider, the Regional Planning Commission is a key force in addressing that reduction by funding the design, implementation, and maintenance of, I'll say it again, voluntary projects. Here are a few more charts and graphs. So how are things going? The headline is probably, we've purposely directed about $3.3 million in the few years since we've been in existence as a clean water service provider. That's money, in a sense, going out the door. What I rather focus on, though, are the two charts. The first chart, what it shows are how many times we have said to people, we have funding, come apply for it. So the first time we did that, we got a lot of applications and funded them. After that, things died down. But what's really cool in my mind, that over time, the trend has been up. The little green bar, you can ignore that. That's kind of special things that can apply for at any time. But the trend is definitely good. And on the right-hand side, those charts are showing phosphorus reduction. I don't need to explain to people, because you've heard it already tonight, why we're trying to reduce phosphorus. But the trend for that is good, especially in the Missisquoi Basin. We are seeing more and more kilograms of phosphorus, in theory, being removed from the stream. I'm just going to touch on a lot of the things, the projects that you've heard about. The Clean Water Service Provider has been providing some of the funding. I'm not going to say all of the funding, some for many, and all for some. But you've seen pictures of these or heard about them earlier tonight. I did want to just close, and I am closing, unfortunately. One other project type that's really unlike the projects that you've heard so far that the Regional Planning Commission is working on. It's an economic impact study. And the Regional Planning Commission pursued this because clean water isn't just something that we drink or that we like to look at. It's an engine for our economy and for agriculture, obviously. But better water quality also affects things like property values and helps for busier commercial centers and things like that. Anyway, the research that we're going to do is going to examine the relationship between cyanobacteria blooms, the green algae blooms, and in the Missisquoi Bay specifically, and nearby property values for residences or seasonal homes. So relationship between water quality and those values, and the relationship between water quality and retail tax receipts. We'll use statistics and data on things like property assessments and traffic. We're just getting started, so I don't have anything to say about it, but it is going to be an interesting project. And I'll say that in the 1980s, there was a similar project for St. Albans Bay, and that study quantified that the impact of the water quality in the bay was something like $6,000 or $7,000 per property. So we're getting into it, and it's different from the things that you've heard, so I thought I would just touch on it. I'm gonna close by just doing the obligatory for more information slide. Check it out. If you go to the Regional Planning Commission's website and just look for clean water service provider, you can find out more. And I think that's how I will end it. So you can.
Give yourself a round of applause. That was a marathon. So we've got about 20 minutes left for this event. You've maybe seen these questions from us before. They don't really change too much because we still really want to know what people are interested in. I think in the next 20 minutes, we can have a handful of different things going on, people just continuing to connect. If you want to talk about these discussion questions, we'd love to talk about them with you. If you'd love to just talk to your neighbor, that is also great. I think maybe some of the folks who have empty chairs next to them, if you want to merge some tables and have discussions with folks you maybe don't know, and just learn more and connect. That's really what the next 20 minutes here are for. And I truly cannot thank you all enough for coming tonight. We've got lots of community members. We've got folks from the Agency of Ag. We've got folks from DEC. We've got folks from NRCS. We've got folks from all the organizations you already heard from, and just a lot of friends in the room. So just thank you so much for coming. And I'm excited to kind of chat over the next 20 minutes and see what's on your minds as well. Thanks, everybody.